Hey guys, Metal Rose here. I'm wearing my Dark Saga t-shirt today, and I'm chilling out at home right now. And I thought I would read some of the lawsuit that has been brought on by the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., against the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, then multiple people, including John Schaffer. So, as much as we're all happy that John has been pardoned, we are also concerned because there is still very much this realistic lawsuit that hasn't been dropped. There's a lot of information floating around. One news article that I just pulled up was a Fox News article, and it says DAs may try to charge Jan 6 participants granted clemency by Trump with new crimes on state and local levels. Because that sounds like it's legal. I mean, I'm sure it is, but it just seems like they're never going to let these people have their lives back. And I really hope that Donald Trump does something about that. That's crazy. There's also an article that I'm going to read at a later time, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, sometime this week, that will interest you based on this lawsuit, okay? But first, let me read this lawsuit to you guys. I'm going to get started now. United States District Court for the District of Columbia. District of Columbia, who is the plaintiff, versus Proud Boys International LLC, Oath Keepers, Ryan Ashlock, Joseph Randall Biggs, Mark Anthony Brew, Thomas Edward Caldwell, William Crestman, Louis Enrique Collin, Donovan Ray Crowell, Nicholas DiCarlo, Charles Donahue, Kenneth Harrelson, Arthur Jackman, Joshua James, Jonathan Peter Klein, Christopher Kuhn, Connie Meggs, Kelly Meggs, Roberta A. Minta, Ethan Nordine, Nicholas Robert Ox, Benny Alvin Parker, Sandra Ruth Parker, William Joseph Pepe, Dominic Pizzola, Zachary Reel, John Ryan Schaefer, who is the person we're most interested in since we are basically the Iced Earth community. At least that's who I'm directing this video toward. Daniel Lyon Scott, Laura Steele, Henry Enrique Tario, Jessica Marie Watkins, Christopher John Worrell, Graydon Young, and John and Jane Doe's 1 through 50. Complaint. The District of Columbia, the district, in parentheses, brings this action against the Proud Boys International LLC, Proud Boys or PBI, and the Oath Keepers, in parentheses, Oath Keepers, their leadership, certain members, and others for conspiring to terrorize the district by planning, promoting, and participating in the violent January 6, 2021 attack on the United States. The District of Columbia, in parentheses, the district, brings this action against Proud Boys International LLC, or Proud Boys or PBI, the Oath Keepers, in parentheses, Oath Keepers, their leadership, certain members, and others for conspiring to terrorize the district by planning, promoting, and participating in the violent January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol building, in parentheses, the Capitol. So I believe that, that's what they're going to be calling everything as, they're going forward and as, they're writing everything down, the court reporters or whatever, I think that's what the parentheses are all about. Nature of this attack. Following the 2020 presidential election, two organizations, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, through which their leadership and certain members and affiliates conspired to commit acts of violence and attack United States Congress on January 6, 2020, in parentheses, the January 6th attack, or the attack, with express purpose of preventing members of Congress and the then Vice President Michael Pence from discharging their official constitutional duties and declaring Joseph Biden the winner of the 2020 presidential election. Over the course of several weeks, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, their leadership, and certain of their members and affiliates motivated by a desire to overturn the legal results of the election and initiate a second term of Donald Trump's presidency, worked together to plot, publicize, recruit for, and finance their planned attack. The result of that planning, the January 6th attack on the Capitol, was not a protest or a rally. It was a coordinated act of domestic terrorism. Would-be insurgents from across the country came to the district, marched through its streets, and ultimately gathered at the United States Capitol, ready and eager to carry out a violent attack on the lawful operation of government. Then, as the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, their leadership, and certain of their members and affiliates had planned, defendants and other rioters broke through police barricades and physically forced their way into the Capitol. In doing so, they threatened, assaulted, injured those who tried to stop them, including officers of the district's Metropolitan Police Department, the quote MPD, and that's in parentheses too, and incited terror among those inside and around the building, including members of Congress who were discharging the official duties of their offices. In the wake of this assault, the Capitol was left in shambles, with the district left to deal with the aftermath of the violent disruption to what should have been the peaceful transition of presidential power. Through this action, the district seeks to hold the defendants accountable under federal laws and the laws of the District of Columbia for the actions committed in furtherance of their conspiracy. The district seeks compensatory, statutory, and punitive relief, and by filing this action, intends to make clear that it will not countenance the use of violence against the district, including its police officers. So, just a quick rundown, now that I've read that much. We need to remember that in the court transcripts for John Schaffer's criminal case, they very consistently said that John wasn't on any of their phone calls, like any of the group phone calls or the group chats, and that he acted alone. Like, they made it very clear, very, very clear. Everything that I read really doesn't tie into John Schaffer's case. I feel like they're just doing this because he's a public figure. All right, now it says parties. Plaintiff is the District of Columbia. The district is a municipal corporation and is the local government for the territory constituting the permanent seat of the government of the United States. The district is represented by and through its chief legal officer, the Attorney General for the District of Columbia. The Attorney General has charge and conduct of all legal business of the district and all suits initiated by and against the district, and is responsible for upholding the public interest. DC Code 1-301.81 subsection A, paragraph 1. Defendant, Proud Boys International, LLC. Proud Boys is a limited liability company organized and existing under the laws of Texas at the time of the action and events alleged in this complaint. PBI was created to establish, maintain, govern, improve, and promote the welfare of a fraternal order that would be known as the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys is a U.S.-based group that promotes and engages in political violence, including the service of its hate-motivated agenda. PBI is a citizen of Florida, Texas, Colorado, Georgia, Michigan, and Canada. Defendant, Oath Keepers. The Oath Keepers is a non-profit corporation incorporated in Nevada with its principal place of business in Granbury, Texas. The Oath Keepers is a militia movement united by baseless conspiracy theories arising from the idea that the federal government has been co-opted by a nefarious group that is trying to strip the United States citizens of their rights. This is now back to the Proud Boys. In February 2021, after it was sued for another violent attack on a church in the district that preceded the January 6th attack, PBI's officers sought to evade service by purporting to dissolve the entity. Under Texas law, PBI continues to exist for 3 years from the time its officers filed papers with the Texas government to dissolve the entity. Therefore, for the purpose of this, PBI remains a limited liability company organized and existing under the laws of Texas. All right, I just wanted to read that because that was part of the page prior and it's just written smaller. It's like a little footnote. So anyway, here we go. These are the individual defendants now, which John Schaffer is one of the individual defendants, and we'll get there eventually. This is unfortunately like an 88-page undertaking. Individual defendants. Defendant Ryan Ashlock. Ashlock is a resident and citizen of the state of Kansas. Ashlock is a member of the Proud Boys. Ashlock was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Kuhn. The indictment filed against Ashlock are publicly available documents and are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Joseph Randall Biggs, Biggs also known as Sergeant Biggs, is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida. Biggs is a member of the Proud Boys. Biggs was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in the U.S. versus Nordine. The first superseding indictment filed against Biggs are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. And now there's like a little other blurb about the Proud Boys. As a limited liability company, PBI's citizenship is determined by the citizenship of its members. PBI's members are the 8 Proud Boys, brothers who are elected by the membership of the Proud Boys Fraternal Order to lead Florida. As a limited liability company, PBI's citizenship is determined by the citizenship of its members. PBI's members are the 8 Proud Boys, brothers who are elected by the membership of the Proud Boys Fraternal Order to lead the organization as elders. The Proud Boys bylaws list that the first chapter of elders as including Enrique Tarrio of Florida, Joshua Hall of Texas, Ethan Nordine of Washington, Lucas Rolfing of Colorado, Heath Hare of Georgia, Harry Fox of Michigan, Timothy Kelly of Canada, and Patrick William Roberts of Colorado. The documents incorporated by reference can be found at, and then there's a website, statesunitedemocracy.org/legal/DCV Proudboys-info-legal, where they are identified by the paragraph number in this complaint in which they appear. Here's more individual defendants. Defendant Mark Anthony Brew. Brew is a resident and citizen of the state of Washington. Brew is a member of the Proud Boys. Brew was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack, U.S. versus Brew. The criminal complaint accompanying statement of facts and indictment filed against Brew are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. It's a lot of that. Defendant Thomas Edward Caldwell. Caldwell is a resident and citizen of the state of Virginia. Caldwell is an affiliate or member of the Oath Keepers. Caldwell was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack, U.S. versus Caldwell. The Watkins and others amended complaint, affidavit in support, and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against Caldwell are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant William Cressman. Cressman is a resident and citizen of the state of Kansas. Cressman is a member of the Proud Boys. Cressman was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Kuhn. The criminal complaint, affidavit in support of Kuhn and others' indictment filed against Cressman are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Louis Enrique Collin. Collin is a resident and citizen of the state of Missouri. Collin is a member or affiliate of the Proud Boys. Collin was criminally charged and indicted in his role for perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Kuhn. The Kuhn and others complaint, affidavit in support, and Kuhn and others indictment filed against Collin are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Donovan Ray Crowell. Crowell is a resident and citizen of the state of Ohio. Crowell is a member of the Oath Keepers. Crowell was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The Watkins and others amended complaint, affidavit in support, and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against Crowell are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Nicholas DiCarlo. DiCarlo is also known as Nick DiCarlo or Nick Labasti, is a resident of the state of Texas. DiCarlo is a member or affiliate of the Proud Boys. DiCarlo was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack. The criminal complaint occupying statement of facts and indictment filed against DiCarlo are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Charles Donahue. Donahue is a resident and citizen of the state of North Carolina. Donahue is a member of the Proud Boys. Donahue was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attacks in U.S. versus Nordine. The Nordine and others' first superseding indictment filed against Donahue is a publicly available document that is hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Kenneth Harrelson. Harrelson is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida. Harrelson is a member of the Oath Keepers. Harrelson was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell, the criminal complaint, statement of facts, and Caldwell and others. Fifth superseding indictment filed against Harrelson are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Arthur Jackman. Jackman is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida. Jackman is a member of the Proud Boys. Jackman was criminally charged and indicted in his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack, U.S. versus Jackman. The criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and superseding indictment filed against Jackman are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into this complaint by reference. Defendant Joshua James. James is a resident and citizen of the state of Alabama. James is a member of the Oath Keepers. James was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against James are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Jonathan Peter Klein. Klein is a resident and the citizen of Oregon. Klein is a member of the Proud Boys. Klein was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Klein. The indictment filed against Klein is a publicly available document that is hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Christopher Kuhn. Kuhn is a resident and citizen of the state of Kansas. Kuhn is a member or affiliate of the Proud Boys. Kuhn was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Kuhn. The Kuhn and others' criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and the Kuhn and others' indictment are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Connie Meggs. C. Meggs. C. Meggs is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida. C. Meggs is a member of the Oath Keepers. C. Meggs was criminally charged and indicted for her role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The Meggs and others' criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against C. Meggs are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Kelly Meggs. K. Meggs. K. Meggs is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida and is the self-described leader of the Florida chapter of the Oath Keepers. K. Meggs was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The Meggs and others' criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against K. Meggs are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Roberto A. Minuta. Minuta is a resident and citizen of the state of Texas. Minuta is a member of the Oath Keepers. Minuta was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against Minuta are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Ethan Nordine. Nordine, also known as Rufio Panman, is a resident and citizen of the state of Washington. Nordine is a self-described sergeant-at-arms in the Seattle chapter of the Proud Boys. Nordine was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attacks in U.S. versus Nordine and others. The criminal complaint affidavit in support and Nordine and others' first superseding indictment filed against Nordine are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Nicholas Ox. Ox is a resident and citizen of the state of Hawaii. Ox is a founding member of the Proud Boys Hawaii chapter. Ox was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus DeCarlo. The criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and indictment filed against Ox are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Benny Alvin Parker. B. Parker is a resident and the citizen of the state of Ohio. B. Parker is a member or affiliate of the Oath Keepers. B. Parker was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against B. Parker are publicly available and are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Sandra Ruth Parker, S. Parker. S. Parker is a resident of the state of Ohio. S. Parker is a member or affiliate of the Oath Keepers. S. Parker was criminally charged and indicted for her role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against S. Parker are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. They just say that so many times. And it's not going to end anytime soon. Sorry. The defendant, William Joseph Pepe. Pepe is a resident and citizen of the state of New York. Pepe is a member of the Proud Boys. Pepe was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Pizzola. The criminal complaint, accompanied statement of facts, and superseding indictment filed against Pepe are publicly available documents hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Dominic Pizzola. Pizzola, also known as Spaz or Spazzo, is a resident and citizen of the state of New York. Pizzola is a member of the Proud Boys. Pizzola was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack, U.S. versus Pizzola. The criminal complaint, affidavit in support, and superseding filed against Pizzola are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Zachary Rell. Rell is a resident and citizen of the state of Pennsylvania. Rell is the president of the Philadelphia Proud Boys chapter and a member of the Proud Boys. Rell was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th in U.S. versus Nordine. The Nordine and others' first superseding indictment filed against Rell is a publicly available document that is hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. All right. So here we go. We're finally at John Schaffer, number 36 on this list. And to be honest, I'm not sure that most of these people deserve to be on this list, if anybody. I haven't read all of the criminal complaints, like for everybody listed here, but what I can say is that I've watched a lot of videos. Some of these people talking about what they went through that day and some of the people that they were affiliated with, and it's a little wild. Just because some of the people really didn't even know or claimed that they didn't know some of the people that they're being associated with in some of these criminal complaints. I guess I'm yet to read all of, the evidence that's publicly available on every single person, but something just doesn't feel right. And I'm going to be honest, I read this article and I watched this video by the Attorney General that is bringing this lawsuit, and it just seems like they're trying to make an example out of these people and take every penny that they possibly can from these people. Really, really wild. At this point with the pardons, especially, I really hope this lawsuit goes away. Some of these people have been pardoned and so many of these people deserve to be pardoned. Defendant John Ryan Schaffer. Schaffer is a resident of the state of Indiana. Schaffer is a founding lifetime member of the Oath Keepers. Schaffer was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Schaffer, in connection with a promise to cooperate with investigators and potentially testify in criminal cases related to the conspiracy to commit the January 6th attack. Schaffer pleaded guilty to the entire statement of offense in the criminal action brought against him, which included 2 felonies: 1, trespass of the Capitol while armed with a deadly and dangerous weapon; 2, obstruction of an official proceeding of Congress. The criminal complaint filed against Schaffer, as well as Schaffer's plea agreement and the accompanying statement of offense describing his conduct, are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint for reference. So here's the thing, and these are like important takeaways. We read the court transcripts, and I think it's really important to note that John wasn't on any group calls. As I said in the beginning, he wasn't in any group texts. And it just sounds to me, according to Judge Mehta, that John really had nothing to give. He had no way to testify in criminal cases because he really didn't have a lot of involvement with the groups. So, sure, he agreed to cooperate and potentially testify, but he would have probably had very little information. If he had the information they desired, they would have actually had him testify. So that's a very, very important thing that we need to note here. And we need to note that this lawsuit is a witch hunt. It's really, really terrible. And this shouldn't even be happening. These people already had their lives taken away from them. And now they just want any money that these people could make to also be taken away from them. So what? You want more homeless people in the system? Like, I don't really understand this. Just to recoup some money for people who were hired to work that day for some damages made to property. Trump has already pardoned them, and John Schaffer was not one of the people that caused damage or caused violence that day. It's so important to note that. I don't 100% know about all of the others, but I do know that John Schaffer did not commit any violence or destruction on January 6th. And you guys really, really need to understand that. The whole world needs to understand that. This attorney general needs to understand that. All right, we got a couple of more defendants to get through. Defendant Daniel Lyon Scott. Scott, also known as Milkshake, is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida. Scott is a member of the Proud Boys and has a tattoo of the organization's name on his upper arm. Scott was criminally charged and indicted in his role for perpetrating the January 6th attack, U.S. versus Scott. The criminal complaint accompanying the statement of facts and indictment filed against Scott are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Laura Steele. Steele is a resident and citizen of the state of North Carolina. Steele is a member of the Florida chapter of the Oath Keepers. Steele was criminally charged and indicted for her role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The Meggs and others criminal complaint affidavit in support and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against Steele are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Henry Enrico Tarrio. Tarrio is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida. Tarrio has been a member of the Proud Boys since 2017. Has been the chairman, the most senior role in, and the face of the organization since November 20th, 2018. As the Proud Boys chairman, Tarrio, in coordination with the Proud Boys elders, acts as the voice of the organization on matters of public concern according to the Proud Boys bylaws. Defendant Jessica Marie Watkins. Watkins is a resident and citizen of the state of Ohio. Watkins is a member of the Oath Keepers. Watkins was criminally charged and indicted for her role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. The Watkins and others criminal complaint affidavit in support and Caldwell and others' fifth superseding indictment filed against Watkins are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Christopher Worrell. Worrell is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida. Worrell is a member of the Proud Boys. Worrell was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Worrell. The criminal complaint accompanying statement of facts and indictment filed against Worrell are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendant Graydon Young. Young is a resident and citizen of the state of Florida. Young is a member of the Florida chapter of the Oath Keepers. Young was criminally charged and indicted for his role in perpetrating the January 6th attack in U.S. versus Caldwell. Young subsequently pleaded guilty to the entire statement of offense in the criminal action brought against him. The criminal complaint and affidavit in support filed against Young, as well as Young's plea agreement and the statement of offense describing Young's conduct, are publicly available documents that are hereby incorporated into the complaint by reference. Defendants John and Jane Does 1 through 50. Upon information and belief, defendant John and Jane Does 1 through 50 are individuals whose names and addresses are unknown and who planned, conspired to carry out, and executed the January 6th attack. The district expressly excludes John and Jane Does 1 through 50, any citizens of the district. Defendants Ashlock, Biggs, Brew, Caldwell, Cressman, Collin, Kroll, DeCarlo, Donahue, Harrelson, Jackman, James, Klein, Kuhn, C. Meggs, K. Meggs, Menuda, Nordine, Ox, B. Parker, S. Parker, Pepe, Pizzola, Rell, Schaffer, Scott, Steele, Tario, Watkins, Worrell, Young, and John and Jane Does 1 through 50 are collectively referenced herein as the individual defendants. As alleged more fully below, the individual defendants conspired together and participated in planning, promoting, financing, organizing, and carrying out the January 6th attack. Defendants Proud Boys and Oath Keepers also participated in the conspiracy, playing a key role in planning, promotion, financing, organizing, and carrying out the January 6th attack by lending their experience and, in some cases, organizational resources to the planned January 6th attack. The defendants are jointly and severally liable for the damages suffered by the district as a result of their unlawful conspiracy. Jurisdiction and venue. The court has jurisdiction over this action under 28 U.S.C. 133 and over the district's state law claims under 28 U.S.C. 1367. Additionally, in the alternative, this court has jurisdiction over the entire action of 28 U.S.C. 1332 because there is complete diversity among the parties and the amount of controversy exceeds $75,000. Venue is properly in this district pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1391 because a substantial part of the events giving rise to the plaintiff's claims occurred in this district. Both the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers have a long history of inciting and engaging in coordinated violence. The violence perpetrated by the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, their leadership, and certain of their members and affiliates through the January 6th attack, while unique in its severity and scope, is far from an isolated occurrence. Violence is an inextricable part of both organizations and a common link between them. The Proud Boys organization and history of violence. The Proud Boys is a U.S.-based group that has repeatedly and persistently instigated, incited, and executed acts of violence and intimidation against their perceived enemies. The Canadian government has designated the Proud Boys as a terrorist entity. Violence has been a key component of the Proud Boys' mission and conduct since its creation. PBI's original constitution and bylaws, which set forth the rules and procedures governing the Proud Boys Fraternal Order, mandated that membership be limited to men who undergo violent intimidation rituals, including getting beaten by other members. The highest level of membership, for example, required a material sacrifice or service, which Proud Boys founder Gavin McInnes has described as getting arrested or committing a violent act in support of the Proud Boys. As a result, when Proud Boys members assemble in large groups at public demonstrations, violence becomes more likely. The Proud Boys members have long-standing practice of instigating and committing acts of violence under the guise of self-defense by responding to small slights with coordinated brutal force. For example, on October 12, 2018, 10 men connected to the Proud Boys were arrested following violent attacks on protesters outside the Metropolitan Republican Club on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. The Proud Boys involved in those attacks punched, kicked, and stomped 4 protesters who were wearing black clothes and masks. Proud Boys later claimed that their members were assaulted by these protesters, but security camera footage revealed that the Proud Boys member initiated the street violence. You know, see, I wasn't there for any of this, and does this have something to do with any of the Proud Boys named in this lawsuit? That's my question. Similarly, in April 2019, Proud Boys members used messaging platforms to coordinate planned violence in advance of an April 2019 rally in Providence, Rhode Island. As one of the Proud Boys instructed before that rally on the encrypted chat service Telegram, if any contact is made with you, that's assault. If they take your hat, spray you with silly string, spit, push, it's assault. I mean, isn't it? We need to have all of our guys there before we retaliate, though, if we can. The cops aren't going to let us fight long. We need to inflict as much damage as possible in the time we have. Now, again, who are these Proud Boys that said this? Does this have anything to do with January 6th? I don't know yet. I haven't gotten there. Maybe not. In October 2018, as law enforcement sought members of the Proud Boys for their role in a fight outside the Metropolitan Republican Club, Proud Boys leadership released a clarified set of bylaws that purported to contradict the Proud Boys' prior violent rhetoric. The new language asserts any requirement that a brother commit a violent or legal act as a condition precedent to receiving a fourth degree is by this bylaw abolished. A few months later, in advance, August 2019 rally in Portland, Oregon, Defendant Biggs suggested that his cohort arm themselves and be prepared for violence. He posted videos of himself holding a spiked baseball bat, telling the camera, "We're going to put this to good use." He also posed wearing a t-shirt reading, "I'm just here for the violence." I want to see the pictures of this, you know? On several occasions in August 2020, Proud Boys members violently confronted protesters and others in Portland, Oregon following the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Proud Boys came to the Oregon protest armed with bear mace, clubs, and firearms. Proud Boys members engaged in multiple acts of violence at the protests, including on August 15, 2020, spraying a journalist with bear mace, and on August 22, 2020, charging and severely beating protesters affiliated with the movement against police brutality. Okay. Again, I'm not really seeing a correlation between this and January 6th. I'm not saying any of this stuff is right, but I don't see any, specific members named in these attacks, so this is a little weird. The Proud Boys' acts of violence are often anticipated, instigated, coordinated, and encouraged by those elected to the organization's leadership. Under the group's bylaws, 8, quote, brothers are elected by the membership of the Proud Boys Fraternal Order to lead the organization as elders. These 8 elders, together the elders chapters, are tasked with taking legal action on behalf of the fraternity, holding property in the name, and collecting suggested voluntary dues for the benefit of the fraternity or for charity, establishing organizations, funds, or trusts to which both members and non-members of the fraternity could contribute for charitable purposes, and generally serving as the final authority on chapter status, membership, criteria, and rituals of the fraternity. The Elders chapter is also responsible for electing the chairman of the Proud Boys, through the chairman serving as the voice of the fraternity as a whole on matters of public concern. The chairman holds the most senior role in the organization. The bylaws of PBI vest the chairman with the sole authority to speak for the Proud Boys Fraternal Order, which includes PBI, the Elders chapter, and all of the chapters established throughout the country. The Proud Boys membership is controlled by local chapter leadership that reports to national leaders. While the organization's membership is not publicly disclosed, members frequently self-identify on social media or by appearing at events organized by the Proud Boys or their affiliates, often in apparel that displays their affiliation, including clothing in the Proud Boys official colors, black and yellow. B. The Oath Keepers Organization and History of Violence. Oath Keepers is a militia movement group united by the view that federal government has been co-opted by a nefarious group trying to strip United States citizens of their rights. Oath Keepers and its members galvanized their supporters by perpetrating perceived threats posed by the federal government, including that the federal government will use a major de-establishing event like a pandemic or terrorist attack as an excuse to institute martial law, force its citizens into detention camps, and strip them of their rights to bear arms in order to enslave them under a one-world socialist government, which its members refer to as the New World Order. Was that what was happening during the Biden administration? Wasn't that what was going on? Oath Keepers and its members present themselves as a bulwark and a militia against these imagined and manufactured threats. The group's members are known for being heavily armed and for being willing to engage in armed confrontations with the government and with people and groups they perceive as supporting government actions, including people who have political beliefs that differ from those of the Oath Keepers. The rules and procedures governing Oath Keepers are set forth in the group's bylaws. Oath Keepers leadership, including the board of the Oath Keepers, which is made up of the founder of the organization, Stuart Rhodes, and at least 10 additional trustees, has repeatedly urged its members to be prepared to fight in what they perceive to be an impending civil war. In addition, the national leadership on the local level, many Oath Keepers self-organize and form official, semi-official, or informal groupings of Oath Keepers. Rhodes described the action arm of the Oath Keepers to be country level and urged local militias to self-organize. Oath Keepers members and affiliates often demonstrate their commitment to the organization by evincing a willingness to engage in armed confrontation. One Oath Keepers member justified the use of these actions, noting, "I like to use the Revolutionary War as an example. The militias were there, well armed and organized, not looking to pick a fight, but ready when it happened." Like members and affiliates of the Proud Boys, members and affiliates of the Oath Keepers have been arrested in connection with and convicted of a wide range of violent criminal activities, including various firearms violations, conspiracy to impede federal workers, possession of explosives, and threatening public officials. In 2010, Oath Keepers member Matthew Fairfield was sentenced to 20 years in prison for storing a live napalm bomb at his home and for storing other explosives at his friend's home in Ohio. Okay. Again, that's not any of the people named here. Not so far, as I've been reading. I just really hate when they throw these little tidbits in. And this is civil court, and civil court is a freaking nightmare. They could just say whatever they want about you, and it's just fact. It's not like criminal court. You can't fight sometimes in civil court. You definitely can't fight the same way. So it's just infuriating to see the names and actions of others in this statement of facts. This is not about January 6th. Some of it is, but this isn't. In 2014, members of the Oath Keepers participated in an armed standoff at the Bundy Ranch in Nevada. Members came from Arizona and New Hampshire to take up an armed defense of Cliven Bundy, a Nevada rancher who was defying an order from the Federal Bureau of Land Management to remove his animals from federal land. The members of the Oath Keepers who joined Bundy aimed their weapons at the Bureau of Land Management agents until the agents retreated from the standoff. The same year, members of the Oath Keepers came to Ferguson, Missouri, when the city was under a state of emergency after the police shooting of Michael Brown. Oath Keepers members in Ferguson claimed to be protecting private businesses from looting and arson. They took tactical positions on top of buildings while armed with firearms in positions across the city. The group eventually dispersed, but only after local police threatened arrest. Members of Oath Keepers reconvened in Ferguson on the anniversary of Michael Brown's death in 2015, dressed in military garb and openly brandishing firearms in the streets after officials had declared a state of emergency. Also in 2015, a federal grand jury indicted a member of the Oath Keepers, Daniel Hayden, for tweeting threats of a violent attack on Oklahoma state government officials, writing, "The war will start on the steps of the Oklahoma state capitol. I will cast the first stone and start killing now." On August 8th, 2018, Oath Keepers announced and began to raise funds for its new Spartan training group, which established to train as a vigilante force. As Oath Keepers described, our goal is to form training groups in as many states as possible. To join your local training group, membership in Oath Keepers will not be required, but will be encouraged. In the era of the Founding Fathers, they formed training bands with the express goal of training the public up to the high standards of the militia. The Spartan program is the modern equivalent. Our qualified and experienced military, law enforcement, and first responder veterans will train the American people up to a similar high standard. Such individuals will form a pool, and trained, organized volunteers will be able to serve as the local militia under the command of a patriotic governor loyal to the Constitution, or if called upon by President Trump to serve the nation. Short of being called by the president, governor, local sheriff, or to provide disaster relief, members will be trained to serve as volunteer security for local events, churches, and affected neighborhood watches for their communities. And I'm sorry, I just want to go back to that last guy, Daniel Hayden. Again, he's not a part of this January 6th situation, so why is that being used here? During the summer of 2020, Oath Keepers leader and founder Stuart Rhodes encouraged members of Oath Keepers to make a showing of force at demonstrations against police brutality. Oath Keepers who attended those events were a self-appointed vigilante force to protect businesses and private property, wearing military gear and carrying weapons in effort to intimidate demonstrators. A founding lifetime member of the Oath Keepers, defendant John Schaffer was the first person to plead guilty to the criminal charges arising from the January 6th attack. Schaffer pleaded guilty to 2 felony offenses. 1, trespass of the Capitol while armed with a deadly or dangerous weapon, which was bear mace that he didn't deploy. 2, obstruction of an official proceeding of Congress, which, what did he really do? He just walked around for a couple minutes. So, now they're adding his name after talking all of this garbage about people that have nothing to do with the day. In connection with his plea deal, Schaffer admitted to the contents of a statement of offense, which included an admission that he unlawfully entered the Capitol building on January 6 with the purpose of influencing, affecting, and retaliating against the conduct of government by stopping or delaying the congressional proceedings by intimidation or coercion. This is, again, something he pled guilty to, probably under pressure, because they were cutting him a plea deal. But if they were just simply to review the footage, they would see that John caused actual no violence or destruction, and he really didn't do anything to impede the election. Nothing that he did had anything to do with impeding the election. In fact, the election wasn't impeded upon. They actually certified the election. So, and with that being read, guys, I'm going to come back to this because this is a part 2 now. So, this may be a 2 or 3-parter, but I love you guys and really think for yourselves here. We're over one hurdle. John Schaffer has been pardoned, but this is hurdle number 2, and it's a big one. Love you guys. See you soon.